Supervillains are usually evil for a reason. Something in their past has motivated them to turn to crime, and as the cliche so succinctly puts it, it's not an easy road to take. We have seen a ton of baddies in the comics go through their fair share of tragedies, so today we are taking a closer look at some of them with our list of the top 10 sad supervillain moments that we'll never forget. And we'll be honest, a good chunk of these moments are origin stories, often used as a way to humanize these villains before they pull some sinister schemes in their respective universes. Just saying. So with that in mind, let's get to it. And at number 10, Thanos and Christmas. We all know that Thanos sucks as a parent. Whether you've seen how terrible he was to Gamora and Nebula in the MCU, or you've seen the way that he treated his respective daughter and granddaughter in the comics, you know that universe's best dad is not a mug the Mad Titan has tucked away in his cupboard. But sometimes Thanos' cruelty makes you feel so damn bad for him. And while we will get more justification on why he is the way he is thanks to a revised look at his origin story years later, more on that coming up, stories like these still manage to gut punch you a bit, even without the full context. Now, Thanos does not celebrate Christmas, but when Gamora was a girl, he felt inclined to give her as normal of a childhood as he could muster. His words, not mine. This meant that while he was hardcore training her to be an assassin, he also made sure to celebrate birthdays and Christmases with her. Case in point, these panels where he finds a doll in some rubble, fixes it up, and gives it to her for Christmas. So why is this sad? Because it leaves us so conflicted. Look at the blackness in his eyes, but look at the happiness on Gamora's face. Yet we know how crappy of a parent he is. Ah, that, my friends, is a three-dimensional character. Moving on. And at number 9, Doom Goes to Hell. Despite being one of Marvel's mainstay villains, from time to time Victor Von Doom has been portrayed as a tragic hero of sorts. Perhaps one of the most prominent examples of this occurred in 1989's Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, A Triumph and Torment. Drawn by legend Mike Mignola, this graphic novel sees Doom attempt to save one of the only people he's ever truly loved, his mother. He's trying to rescue her from the depths of hell. Doom's journey ends up taking him to Mephisto, and he ends up incurring hell himself in order to save his mom. The whole thing is pretty tragic. From Doom's request for Doctor Strange's help, to Doom accepting flowers from a child, to, spoiler, his mother rejecting his rescue attempts, the whole thing leaves you feeling for Victor in a way that most readers never have before. Speaking of parents, and at number 8, Thanos' mom rejects him. Remember how we mentioned earlier that Thanos' origins were later explored, which then helped explain why the Mad Titan was, and is, so darn mad? Well, in 2013, a 5-issue limited series titled Thanos Rising was released, and it featured Thanos returning to his home on the Saturn moon Titan, getting all nostalgic, visiting the grave of his mother. We then find out that Thanos' mother straight up rejected him when he was born, literally seconds out of the womb, people. Thanos, who carries the deviant gene, looks different than the other Eternal inhabitants on his planet, who basically look like humans. The Eternals and the Deviants are mortal enemies, so, shocked by his appearance, she tried to kill him. Luckily for him, his father prevented this from happening, and later he would brutally murder his own mother by dissecting her. Oof. And at 7, Doomsday's origin story. Buckle in for this one, friends. So, Doomsday's claim to fame is that when he first hit the scene, he and Superman got into a colossal punching match that caused them both to knock each other out so hard that they seemingly killed one another. Spoiler alert, they didn't. But that's besides the point. When Doomsday was first introduced in 1992, we would learn about how this creature, who only cared about destruction and hate, came to be. A long time ago on the planet Krypton, there once was an evil scientist named Bertron. Bertron was a piece of work. He wanted to test evolution and use it to create the ultimate life form. Back then, Krypton was an almost inhabitable place. Its terrain was a hellish wasteland, but Bertron used that to his advantage. He took a baby and then tossed it into that wasteland. As you would expect, the baby died, no surprise there. But that is what Bertron wanted. He then collected the remains of the baby and then used its genetic material to clone another baby, one that was theoretically stronger. And then he tossed it into the Kryptonian wasteland too. Despite the hesitation and reluctance of others on Krypton, Bertron kept this up, doing it over and over again, cloning stronger babies and then basically torturing them, sending them to their deaths, and repeating the process for decades in order to achieve what he believed was a form of accelerated natural evolution. Eventually, the creature survived the temperatures and the terrain, only to be killed by predators. Bertron then repeated the cycle until the child could metabolize solar energy, adapt to whatever killed it previously, and could sustain itself entirely. So what did this creature do? It killed off all the predators on Krypton and then escaped, where it would then travel the universe, beat up some Green Lanterns, and eventually was killed off by a race called the Catalan, who managed to defeat it with a being made of pure energy called the Radiant. Doomsday was then given a dishonorable burial, wrapped up like this. But thanks to his nature, he revived himself, came back to life, and eventually ended up on Earth. And at 6, KORVACS suicide. Back in the late 70s, there was something called the KORVACS saga. The conclusion to this saga, which occurred in the Avengers issue 177 in 1978, the titular villain committed suicide, with his dying act being to restore the Avengers and the Guardians characters before he bit the cosmic dust. So, what happened? Let's backtrack. In 1975, Marvel readers were introduced to a new villain, Korvac, also known as Michael Korvac or the Enemy, a character who came from another Earth set in the future. After he fled to Earth 616, he attempted to download Galactus' knowledge. He was also a brilliant computer whiz on his Earth, side note. And in the process, he was imbued with the power cosmic. This is where he became a threat and showed up on the radar of the Guardians of the Galaxy. They go after him and enlist the help of the Avengers. Now, the Collector, who senses a great threat is on its way for the Elders of the Universe, creates a daughter who he named Karina. She's essentially a weapon, but she ends up falling for Korvac, betraying Daddy Dearest. Eventually, he and Karina are tracked down and forced into combat. And in a critical moment during the battle, when it seems that Korvac has won, Karina hesitates, and Korvac senses doubt in her. Within a split second, he realizes that if his love doubts him, there is nothing for him in this world, so he kills himself. It's not particularly gruesome or gallant. Korvac just drops, glows a little, everyone is revived, and Karina is horrified. In general, Korvac's tale is a tragic one. Towards the end, he just wanted to be with the woman he loved. Although he did come back, and that's a whole other thing, but Keeping things grim, at number 5, ZEMO almost commits suicide. Taking a detour out of the comics and instead a look at the MCU, let's talk about Helmut ZEMO and his scene with Black Panther at the end of Captain America Civil War. Obviously, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but it came out years ago, so that's your fault. So while Cap, Tony, and Bucky are brawling away thanks to ZEMO finally getting his vengeance, T'Challa stumbles upon ZEMO sitting outside. Rather than kill him, he decides to break the cycle and become a part of it. He chooses to let ZEMO live, preventing the villain from killing himself, with the intent of turning him over to the authorities because justice, etc. ZEMO has lost everything and doesn't really even have the satisfaction of successfully pulling off his scheme. He just misses his family. The whole scene is a bit of a tearjerker, but T'Challa does the right thing. And hey, that now means we get ZEMO returning to the MCU in the upcoming Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series, so I guess everything worked out in the long run. Or not. ZEMO's still bad. Presumably. And at 4, Bane's origin story. Bane is a complex character in the DC universe, so it's fitting that he has an atypical origin story. Bane was born inside of a prison. If that wasn't bad enough, in this prison in Santa Prisca, it had been predetermined before he was even born that he would be serving out a life sentence in his father's place. That's brutal. Bane was raised by other inmates and was forced to fight for food daily just to survive. As you can tell, this prison was super rough, and when he was a small child, he committed his first murder in there, hiding a weapon inside of his teddy bear. By the time he became an adult, he was experimented on and presumed dead after one of those experiments, and was then tossed out to the sea. But Bane wasn't dead, and you guys know the rest of the story from there. And at number 3, Valeria. Another Doom moment on this list. This one is a bit more specific than our last one though. In Fantastic Four issue 54 from 2002, Dr. Doom ends up helping the Fantastic Four instead of fighting them, in a way that you wouldn't expect. When Sue Storm was pregnant and Reed was away on a mission, Johnny Storm had to call up Victor to help deliver the baby. Now this was due to complications with the pregnancy because of the cosmic rays that had given the team their powers initially. Using his mystical capabilities, Victor safely delivered the child and requested that in return she be named Valeria. So why is this sad AF? Because Valeria is the name of the woman he had loved in the past, his very first love, who he was forced to kill. Now to be fair, he didn't actually have to, and killing her was a ritual of sorts to get new magical powers from some demons, but still, he's sad inside, alright? Feel bad for him. Up next at 2, DEX-STARR. Here we have yet another gut punch for you, especially for animal lovers. When it comes to animals, especially cats or dogs, it's hard to not sympathize with them when they're in need, even if that animal turns out to be a supervillain. Case in point, Red Lantern kitty extraordinaire DEX-STARR. DEX-STARR used to be Dexter, a stray cat who was adopted by a young adult living in Brooklyn, New York. And Dexter loved that owner dearly. Here's where the tragedy comes in. His owner was brutally murdered, which poor Dexter witnessed, so he was back on the streets, where he was then abused by street thugs looking for a cheap thrill. After they beat up Dexter, they threw him off the Brooklyn Bridge assuming he was dead. But instead, filled with rage, Dexter was granted a Red Lantern ring and killed his attackers. I don't know about you guys, but I really want to go home and hug my cat right now. Oh, why would they hurt a cat? But now he's a supervillain and can fight against them. Overall, I'm very conflicted, you guys. And last but not least, in at number 1, Magneto's origins. What's sadder than the Holocaust? Seriously, it is the most tragic event to ever occur in all of human history. Not to, try to compare tragedies or anything, they're all bad, but this one was like really, really bad. If you don't know your history, you should probably give it a Google and then prepare yourself to cry a lot. It's a narrative that Marvel borrowed when bringing Magneto to life, a creative decision that makes everything the mutant villain does that much more impactful. Now, Magneto grew up during World War II and was a part of the Holocaust. A Jewish schoolboy living in Germany, you can imagine the hardship that he was put through, something we got a closer look at in X-Men Magneto Testament. By the end of the limited series, he's a soldier commando at Auschwitz, workers who were made up of prisoners who were forced to aid with the disposal of gas chamber victims. It's a sobering look at the atrocities from the Holocaust, all from the eyes of one of Marvel's most intricate villains. Well, that was a whole lot of screwed up childhoods and depressing origin stories. What other supervillain moments left you shedding a tear? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know. While you're at it, spread that love, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Nerd for more videos like this one if you haven't already. Become a part of the Nerd Squad, we'd love it if you guys stuck around some more. And, we do have videos that are arguably a little less depressing than this one, or so I hope. In the meantime though, thanks for watching friends, I'll catch you all in the next one.